Hello people, how you doing? I hope life is amazing wherever you are. My name is Pepe Cuenca. I'm a Spanish Grandmaster, and I'm sorry, but I'm the ugly guy you have to see today in the screen. What am I doing here today? I'm gonna cook something, I'm gonna have some breakfast with you guys. No, I'm gonna do some chess commentary about what? Well, as you guys know, the Gibraltar Masters Trade-Wise Open finished just a few days ago. It was a really interesting Open full of big fishes. I was playing there, and it was a really interesting tournament. It's of course one of the strongest chess opens in the world. And I'm gonna show you the game that won the best game prize. And it happened in the first round between the English player Gary Quillan, international master, and Daniil Dubov, Russian super strong grandmaster. As you guys know, Daniil Dubov is above or more or less 2700, so it's one of the best chess players in the world. And I'm gonna tell you that you guys should fasten your seatbelts because there is a lot of tactics, a lot of amazing shots in this game. So let's just see what happened in the 64 squares in the first round in the Gibraltar Masters between Gary Quillan and Daniil Dubov. So the English player decides to go for e4 and Dubov plays g6. The modern defense is actually quite trending among top players nowadays because of course it's very flexible and then you go out of theory quite fast. There are many possible orders, so you can trick white depending what he does. So d4 occupying the center, bishop g7 and f4, sending Facundo already to the action. And the idea is quite simple. Of course, you want to gain a lot of space in the center. You want to continue with knight f3. Whenever a knight comes to f6, there is some e5 push. And yes, so d6 was played by Daniil Dubov, and now knight f3. And Daniil Dubov played bishop g4. Of course, if now we go knight f6 here, we actually are entering in the Austrian attack against the Pirc defense, right? So, for example, here knight c3 or bishop d3 followed by e5. This is quite known. But instead, after knight f3, bishop g4 was played by Daniil Dubov. And now, of course, black is threatening to just take on f3, forcing white to take back with the pawn since d4 is actually attacked, right? So that's why Gary Quillan played c3, reinforcing d4, preparing to recapture on f3 with the queen, right? Knight d7 was played by Daniil Dubov, developing a minor piece, preparing for the e5 break, for the c5 break maybe. And bishop c4, developing another minor piece, preparing for castling in the next move, and also creating some tricks in the position. Why some tricks? We are only in the 6th move, Pepe. What are you talking about? Just shut up and go home. Well, if you play something stupid like c6, now bishop e7, f7 is a big baboom, right? It's a quite known trick in these types of positions, since after king f7, there is knight g5 check, just winning this piece on g4 back, and then with a crushing position for white, right? So that's why after bishop c4, black had to deal with that, and then Daniil Dubov played e6, a really natural move, avoiding this bishop f7 trick, and now preparing for knight e7 and for short castling in the next move. So short castles by white, knight e7, and according to my database, there were only 6-7 games with this position, where in most of them white played h3, forcing black to exchange the bishop on f3, winning the bishop pair. But of course, these positions are still quite tricky. After short castles, there are many breaks in the center, d5, e5, and it's actually quite interesting position. But in this position, after knight e7, Gary Quillan decides to deviate from the theory by playing queen to e1. It's actually a really natural move as well. You unpin this knight from f3, you prepare this queen to join the attack via h4, attacking h7, for example. There's some f5 ideas, followed by bishop h6. I mean, what I mean is this queen e1 is actually quite natural. So black goes short castles and now bishop b3, a prophylactic move. This is a really common move as well in these types of position. You can see this bishop c4, bishop b3, for example, in Caro Pirc's type positions. Well, the idea is to be prophylactic against some d5 break. For example, if you go bishop e3 in this position, now d5 attacks the bishop on c4, and basically you are forcing white to take on d5, where actually the f5 square is going to be quite tasty for black's knight. With this bishop e3 what you do basically is after d5, you keep an extra option of going e5, for example, or knight e5. You are not forced to exchange immediately on d5, right? At this point, Dubov played bishop f3. Of course, this bishop is gonna be exchanged anyway in f3, right? Since you don't have any squares for that guy. Rook f3 and c5. Quickly attacking in the center. Well, black has to do something because black has given up its bishop pair, and in return, of course, he's leading in development. Look at these pieces here on the queen side. So what black is gonna try to make is just to create a lot of pressure, to put a lot of pressure in white center. For example, in this diagonal can be very weak as well, some queen b6 as well, reinforcing this pressure of a d4. And now there are some breaks after exchanging on d4, d5 for example, in order to create this takes the square for the knight on f5. Bishop e3 was played by Gary Quillan, developing a minor piece, defending d4, c takes d4, c takes d4, and now knight f6 was played. Knight c6 could be also interesting, but now e5 is actually quite good. And this knight is not so well placed on c6. It was better placed on e7, where you can actually jump to f5. So after c takes d4, Daniil Dubov played knight f6. And now knight c3, another real natural move, protecting e4, developing your last minor piece. And now black plays knight to g4. Really interesting move, since now d4 is actually attacked by this guy on g7, and then you cannot retreat your bishop to d2 since d4 will fall, right? So this means that actually black is able to win the bishop pair back if he wants, right? In the next move, knight takes e3. So since white cannot avoid this, just Gary Quillan, sorry about my pronunciation of his surname, Gary Quillan or Quillan, whatever. Gary played rook d1, and the thing is, of course, black could take on e3, queen takes e3, and d5. Maybe this was a healthier option than what he played in the game, because for example now after e5, yeah, maybe white is a little bit better, but then you got plans with black as well, related by playing f6, knight f5. If white exchanges on f6, then you will suffer the pressure on d4. You got the c file as well for black's rook. So what I mean, this is a really healthy and interesting position. Instead, Daniil Dubov played queen b6. It's true that actually looks like this bishop cannot be retreated to c1 or to d2 anyway, since d4 is gonna fall. But now Gary Quillan plays a really accurate sequence of moves. He goes knight a4, removing this queen from this diagonal. And now after queen a6, sorry, now a really good move by Gary Quillan. He plays bishop c1, keeping his bishop pair. And now if black doesn't do anything, well, you're just gonna kick this knight back by playing a3, and after knight f6, you can always go back with your knight to c3, and then you're gonna enjoy the bishop pair. So that's why black has to play with a lot of energy, and Daniil Dubov played b5, attacking this knight on a4 and knight c3. Now black went queen to b6, attacking d4, and maybe this is the move that Daniil Dubov didn't see when entering in this line. Well, looks like d4 is attacked, and it's not easy to defend it, right? Whenever you go rook d3 or something, there is some e5 coming as well, like creating some more pressure. Knight c6, a lot of pieces attacking d4. But now there is a really great move by Gary Quillan. He went queen h4 with a double attack. He says, you know, I don't care about this pawn on d4. You can take it. You can take this pawn on d4. You can give me the checks that you want. I just don't care. Well, the thing is, actually taking on d4 is a big mistake, since after king h1 there is a double attack on these two knights. Knight f2, just rook takes, and then queen e7. And now if you try to go back to f6, there is a huge baboom, boop, rook takes e4, queen takes e4, and bishop e3, deviation theme. Now wherever you move this queen, actually you don't have so many squares, but if you find a square, for example, let's say queen b4 or something, then queen f6 just wins a game for white, right? Two pieces for a rook, a weak king, attacking chances basically black has to resign. So that's why after queen h4, black has to go back to f6. And at this point, you realize that something has gone wrong, since now I managed to develop all my mano pieces and I kept the bishop pair in the board. And from this point, Gary Quillan plays a really brilliant game. Let's see how he starts attacking black's king. He goes g4, a really interesting idea. The idea is not to play g5, as some of you might think now, since then knight h5, and then this could block more or less white's attack over black's king, right? But instead, you are threatening to go e5 and rook h3. And now h7 is going to suffer a lot in this position, right? It's going to be extremely difficult to defend it. So, Daniel Dubov plays in a prophylactic way queen b7. Now, avoiding this e5 since the rook on f3 is hanging. But then, just rook h3 was played by Quillan, and now e5 is actually a threat, right? e5 and then h7 both fall, and then if h7 falls, then this means checkmate. So, Dubov has to take desperate measures, and then he goes for h5 in this position. Now, g takes h5, knight takes h5, and Facundo, solving the issue, solving the situation. f5 comes with a lot of blood in this position, right? So look at this guy here. He's a little monster. This guy, and he's a little monster. This guy on b3. He starts, pushing from your fingers in your hand. Then he starts tackling you. I mean, this guy is actually an amazing piece in these diagonals. And now, of course, you can never take with this pawn on g, since h5 is hanging. And whenever you take with the e pawn, then this guy is gonna have even more strength. But actually, you have to take on f5, sorry. If you go b4, just f takes g6, just wins a game. You can never take with your knight, since queen h5 comes. You can never take with your pawn, since bishop e6 comes with fatal consequences. So that's why after f5, e takes f5 was played, and now e takes f5, knight takes f5, and queen to g5. Let's just think a little bit about this position. Well, you can also think that white's king is actually in a lot of troubles, and it could be so. Actually, white has to be really careful as well. But let's take a look on this guy again on b3. Since this guy is on b3, there's so many tactical shots, so many threats for black here. So basically, you are threatening to go queen g6, and it's extremely difficult to parry that threat. And you are also threatening to go rook takes h5. Well, the only move that actually parries this queen takes g6 is the move knight e7, and this is what Daniel Dubov played. And now, a really brilliant move by Gary Quillan. He went rook takes h5, boom, g takes h5, and a really humble but amazing move, rook d2. The idea is actually quite simple. You just want to go rook g2 and then give checkmate. The only piece that could be in between the queen and the bishop is the knight coming to g6, but then this means queen takes g6 coming, since this bishop on b3 is always looking around from there, right? So basically black is lost in this position. Well, for example, if you try to go in h7 in order to play knight g6, of course now you take on h5, and after bishop h6, rook g2, and now this guy comes as well and joins the party. So good party on h6, right? One of the best parties in the chess wall. By the way, there is a nice party in Gibraltar Chess Open the last night all the time. There is a gala dinner, and then they play some music over there, and then you can play, well, some of the stars, for example, Ivanchuk was playing blitz against chess players, right? I mean, against anybody. So he was playing there, so he was very, very, very kind. And Nakamura was playing blitz as well, and Hari Krishna. It was really fun. All right, so rook d2, and now d5. Desperate measures again for Daniel Dubov. Basically, you cannot do anything. I mean, if you try to go queen b6 in order to enter on d4, then this knight on e7 is hanging. And if you think that you can bring this rook to the action, well, that's not true, since bishop f7 just wins the game on the spot. So after rook d2, d5 was played by Dubov, but after knight takes e5, black has the same problems, right? So rook f8 was played, rook g2, threatening checkmate, and now g6, and now one last shot by Gary Quillan. This is the move, boom, knight f6, and basically black has to resign. Let's just try to analyze the possibilities. If you take on f6, then queen takes e6 just wins the game, since after king f8 there is queen g8, king e7, queen f7, winning the queen on b7, and after knight f6, if you go king f8, knight h7 check, king g8, and queen takes g6, sorry, not g6, g6, and there's checkmate on g7 in the next move. Well, you can try to survive one more move, rook e1, then after king f2, there's just checkmate in few moves, right? So it was a really nice game. So David versus Goliath, 2300 player beating 2700 player. This doesn't happen in such a brilliant way every day. So I hope you guys enjoyed the game. This was the best game prize from Gibraltar Masters Open. Well, I hope you guys are well. You know, if you drink, don't drive. This is all I got to say. Bye bye, and see you in the next video. Bye bye. Bye bye, mi piccolissima dama.